everybody. Welcome back to FoxNews.com Live. We are joined right now by Lila Nordstrom to discuss the World Trade Center impact on health. And if you look back now, well, okay, there you are. Fantastic. So nearly a decade after the terrorist attacks at the World Trade Center, more people are dealing with health issues, Lila, than they ever thought, related to the exposure from the site. So what can you tell us about that impact?
There's absolutely been a huge impact on the health of almost everybody who was down in Lower Manhattan after 9/11. I was in high school after 9/11, and our high school went back to Lower Manhattan less than a month after the attacks. And right now, I know personally, I'm, as a lifelong asthmatic, experiencing a lot of respiratory issues, but also other things that I didn't expect, like chronic bronchitis and very serious acid reflux that, causes problems with my asthma. There's anecdotal reports of a lot of cancers among my classmates that are similar to cancers that they're seeing in higher incidences with first responders. So it's a major concern for us right now.
So you were literally a student at Stuyvesant High School, which is very close to that area. And so this isn't like a unique problem that you're having. Many of your peers and friends, people that you know, have been suffering similar problems, respiratory issues, etc. What can you do about it? Like, what kind of relief can you get or assistance to help you with this?
Well, there's a program at Bellevue, the World Trade Center Environmental Health Clinic, that 9/11 victims can visit if they feel like they have a 9/11 related condition. For my specific demographic, the real challenge is location, because many of us left the city after 9/11. I was a senior in high school, so I went on to college, and I now live in California. And I know that getting to the Environmental Health Center is one of the big challenges that a lot of us are facing, but it's at least nice that we have that there, because otherwise there's really no way for us to know what kind of things we should be looking for.
Now, tell us about the organization that you're involved with.
I founded an organization called StuyHealth. I noticed around the time that James Zadroga died, that's who the 9/11 health bill was named after, there was no real voice for students in the 9/11 victims community. There were a lot of community groups that represented people that lived in Lower Manhattan and people that worked in Lower Manhattan. But because we had been, children at the time, and, we had just sort of grown up in the aftermath of it, there wasn't really an organization that represented students specifically and the specific concerns that students have, which include the fact that, we were not from Lower Manhattan. We came from all over the city.
Sure.
There were a lot of schools in that area, and now we're a dispersed population. We live all over the country because we went off to college or went, to go work, and we graduated and left our homes. And so we have a specific set of concerns, and I thought it was important that there be a voice for us in that, debate.
What I think is so interesting is just, your personal story, what you experienced and went through, that, your school was one of the first that was, cleared out after, and then you were able to go back to the school. You thought that everything had been cleaned properly, etc. But actually your high school was even one of the command centers down there at the time. That's how close it was in terms of where it's situated relative to where 9/11 occurred.
Yeah, no, our school... As soon as we evacuated it, it got turned into a command center, and then they did sort of a cursory cleaning before we went back, but it turned out that none of our vent system had been cleaned out, none of the, carpets or fabric from the theater had been replaced. There were a lot of things that they sort of overstepped in the cleanup process in order to get us back down there quickly, and I think ultimately it turned out that it probably wasn't a safe environment for us, because we were also located right next to the barge that they brought all the World Trade Center debris to.
I'm just thinking about, kind of the personal struggle that you've had, like you said, being an asthmatic, the fact that you have chronic, bronchitis, you've got the acid reflux from it, and then every time you get sick, it tends to develop into an infection, so you have to take antibiotics, and you've got health care issues, right, and that you don't have the coverage for some of those antibiotics, which are quite expensive.
Well, absolutely. One of the things that I think this was one of the reasons that I thought it was important to start StuyHealth is, I lost my parents' health insurance when I graduated from college, and I didn't realize how expensive a lot of the medications that I had been taking were. Advair, which is one of the most common steroids that they prescribe asthmatics, is $200 a month.
Right.
And a lot of those other medications are just, they're too expensive to expect people on a starting salary to be able to afford. So it's important that people be aware that the Environmental Health Center at Bellevue can treat these things and also provides the medication free of charge. But it's also important to kind of identify that these concerns are elevated in this certain population so that we can make sure that people aren't being burdened by really expensive medications that they shouldn't necessarily have to pay for.
Yeah, unbelievable. And it says here that in terms of the asthma, that the rate of new asthma was highest, 12% among rescue and recovery workers who worked on the debris pile on 9/11 as well. And then you saw a full screen there that we showed 124,800 to 232,200 experienced respiratory symptoms just from being exposed during 9/11.
Yeah.
That is such a staggering number. How can Bellevue or any facility, adequately deal with all of these problems with so many people that have been affected?
Bellevue is a program that's specifically designed for the group of people that we call survivors, which are not first responders. First responders have their own program that they visit. And Bellevue is specifically for residents and students and office workers who are in Lower Manhattan who need treatment and who also need monitoring, more importantly. I mean, just because there's really no way to know what kind of health impacts the rest of us should be looking out for if we're not being monitored. And so that's the Bellevue program was funded by the Droga bill, but it's an important part of our treatment option.
Well, obviously, Lila, you have concerns that you don't want that funding to be cut off, which we can understand.
Absolutely.
People want to get more information about these issues that you're talking about, or where they can get help. Where would you like to direct them?
I would direct them to the Bellevue Clinic's website. It's the World Trade Center Environmental Health Center. And then I would also direct them, my group specifically was organized using social media, so we have a presence on Facebook and Twitter. It's called StuyHealth, and you can look it up from there.
All right, fantastic. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you and hearing your story. Thank you for sharing it with us, Lila Nordstrom.
Thanks so much.
Okay, up next we have Ashley Vorkin. She's joining us with all the latest from the newsroom about American Idol. A little recap.